Now, you might want to let all this melt first, but you don't have to wait for spring to go ahead and start riding again. What's up, guys? I'm Isaac here. It's Back Road Harley-Davidson, and today we're going to help you keep on riding through the winter by diving into some of the best ways to dress to stay warm on your motorcycle. Riding a motorcycle brings a lot of joy, but trying to ride through the winter can bring about its own challenges. Fortunately, in North Carolina, we get a relatively moderate summer and winter around here, which will let you keep on riding year-round if you're prepared right. But if you've ever ridden your motorcycle in the cold, then you know that being on the bike is going to feel a whole lot colder than just standing around right here. And you can expect another video later on how to stay cool on your bike, but right now we want to stay warm. Besides making a winter ride just suck less, staying warm on your bike has a lot of benefits. By staying warm, especially through your fingers and hands, it's going to help you maintain that dexterity on the bike so you can maintain good control, and it's going to help reduce fatigue. So you'll be able to ride a whole lot longer and better and have an overall more enjoyable experience. And to do this, we have to dress right. And there's a little bit more to it than just throw it on your leather jacket and hopping on the bike. Essentially what we're trying to do is trap that body heat in, and we're trying to keep the cold elements out. But what elements specifically? Well, specifically we're looking at obviously the cold air and the wind and the rain. And if you've ever wondered why it's a lot colder on the motorcycle, that's because of a little thing called wind chill. The National Weather Service has a really cool wind chill chart posted that shows you based on what the air temperature is and what the wind speed is. So for wind speed, we can say that that's our speed on the motorcycle. It's going to show you what the temperature actually feels like. So for example, if you're going 60 miles an hour on the road in a 40-degree day, it's actually going to feel like 25 degrees out. And if you've ever had your nice warm cup of coffee, which I could go for right now, then you know if you keep blowing on the cup, it's going to keep removing heat from that system, so it's going to help cool it down. Well, if you blew on it for 2 hours, or if you went on a 2-hour ride, then it's probably going to get pretty cold. So the longer you ride too in those conditions, the more heat that's going to get pulled from that system if you don't have a good system to keep that wind chill out. Then there's moisture. Being cold is one thing, but being cold and wet leads to a whole nother, potentially more dangerous situation. Not only do you have to worry about ice or something like that on the ground, but also that's where you really start to have to worry about things like hypothermia, all because of a cool thing called evaporative cooling. Now, you've probably seen those like moisture vests where you can like soak the vest there in the summertime in some water. You can do it in the winter too, but you can take a vest, soak it there in some water, and then wear it on a motorcycle ride through a particularly hot area. And as the water evaporates, it's actually going to cause a reduction in temperature. So it's going to help you kind of cool off a little bit more. Well, that process also happens in the winter if you're wet and there's a big wind chill on you. However, in the winter, we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So you definitely want to make sure that you've got some kind of layer that's going to be able to keep that moisture off of you and keep that rain out. And you also want to keep the moisture out of your system, mainly talking about sweat. So the body does a cool thing called sweating to encourage that evaporative cooling to help you stay cooler in the summer. But if you threw on all these layers and then you went back and forth inside the house to go ahead and pack your motorcycle for a trip, you're probably going to start to sweat. And when you get all that moisture inside your system, then when you hop on the bike, then that moisture is going to start to evaporate and cause you to get a whole lot colder a whole lot faster. So we have to keep the moisture from getting in the system, and we have to also prevent moisture from being introduced inside the system. And so let's go ahead and talk about layering. In North Carolina, it's no secret that the weather changes quite a bit. I think last weekend I was rocking the motorcycle down South Saunders in a t-shirt, and now here we are in an ice storm. So as North Carolinians, but also as motorcycle riders, we have to adapt to all these changing situations that we can encounter, especially if we're doing any long motorcycle tour, where if we're riding from here to Vermont, we're going to see a lot of changing systems, especially in elevation, if we go up to the mountains or something like that. So, we might have to be prepared for, with riding in 35 degrees as well as 75 degrees. And so that's why it's extra important to keep your system as modular as possible, utilizing layers. So that way, if you get too hot, you can prevent sweating by going ahead and removing some of those layers. And that's why if you've shopped around for a motorcycle jacket, you've probably seen why so many off different liners inside of them. And that's sort of two reasons. One, to do everything that we were just talking about, but also to make that garment not only more useful for a long trip, but also for different seasons, because motorcycle gear is definitely an investment. So you can get a little bit more value out of it if you can wear it through more seasons. So like most jackets, they're going to offer a way to stay warmer and a way to stay cooler. So a lot of them will have some sort of liner system, and then even more, especially like a lot of leather jackets, will have zippers on them. That way, or vents, so you can open it up and let a little bit more cool air through there. So if I got too hot riding on the bike like this, which would be very unlikely today, then I could just unzip the jacket a little bit more, or unzip a vent somewhere. That way I can help regulate a little bit better and prevent that sweat from starting. But then for layers, we should really consider 3 main layer types. Now, of course, you can wear more than 3 layers, but there's 3 main categories that they should really come into. You should utilize some sort of outer layer, you should utilize a good mid layer, and then you should also make sure you have a good base layer, or I went to 4 this time, but there's a good little base layer or something like that. Now on that base layer, its main job is to keep that moisture off of you. And so a good wicking material, that's always a really good option, maybe like a dry fit shirt or something along those lines. And all these will pretty much be recommended to be long sleeve. But for, kind of activity that I'm preparing for, this just kind of like dry wicking material, that'll do pretty well. And then also to kind of go on top of that, I really like to utilize a flannel or something like that. Bonus points if it's a Dixon flannel. Those definitely keep you warmer, and because you'll feel cooler if you do it. And then next up is going to be a good mid layer. So this is the Harley heated jacket, which I'm going to talk about that later. 10 out of 10, would recommend. But your mid layer is going to be where most of your insulation is going to be. So this is kind of like a down system. So this is a really good jacket without even being plugged. What it's going to do is it's going to help keep that body heat in, and then also help kind of separate that body heat from that outer layer that might get a little bit cooler. So that's where most of your insulation is probably going to be. And then that brings us to that outer layer. So that outer layer, its main job is to keep the elements off of you. So that moisture or that wind, that's really what it's got to do. Obviously, for Harley-Davidson's, leather is a really good choice. Seems to go well together. Got a pretty big job. Not only has it got a really hard job of keeping you looking cool, but it's also got a really hard job of keeping all that wind out. And leather is really one of the best garments for keeping wind out, and also for offering that protection, because since we're riding motorcycles, that's also something we have to keep in mind. Since we're riding in worse conditions, being a little bit more prepared for a slide or something like that. So it's really nice to have a jacket that's got armor in it, and leather offers really good really good abrasion resistance. But as great as leather is, it does have a few downfalls. The biggest one is it's a little bit heavy, and it's especially heavy if it gets wet. It takes a long time to dry out. So if you're wearing leather, it's really important to go ahead and make sure that you do have some sort of waterproof layer over it. And leather is kind of expensive. Because of all those reasons, many people also choose textile options. So something kind of like this for a jacket, because it offers a lot of the same benefits, usually at a lower price. Usually won't be as good as leather, but it's good to have options. Now, an item can get a bonus if it can add heat to the system, and that's where the Harley-Davidson heated jacket comes into play. I'm not trying to turn this video into a full commercial here, but my absolute favorite piece of cold weather riding gear has to be the heated jacket. It's really let me reduce how many layers that I have to bring. So even if it might be a little bit chilly at night or something like that, I can bring that heated jacket with me and, tuck it up underneath another jacket, and there's a very wide range that I'm good to ride in now. So instead of bringing 4 different hoodies, I can just bring that jacket and, crank it up if I get a little bit colder. And I can just hit the button right here and crank the temperature up a little bit. And it's been an absolute game changer. Now, this is the 12-volt programmable heated jacket. Fantastic. It works great on its own, but also if you're able to, but if you can plug it into the bike, you've got those 3 settings you can choose from, and it is phenomenal at that. Now, there's also different options too. There's also the pants liners or the bottoms, there's the sock liners, and there's the glove liners. I think about all of those every time I go ride. And there's the gauntlet gloves too. But to do all those, you do have to have different pieces for it to work together. So for example, the pants, the socks, they have to plug into the pants, and the gloves, to use them, they have to plug into the jacket, because on the jacket, that's where they'll plug into, and then they'll also have, that's where the controller is. So same thing with the pants. Now the pants, they can plug into the jacket itself, or they can plug directly into the bike like the jacket does. Now a lot of the newer bikes like the Street Glide Ultra and the Pan Americas, they already have the wiring harness to plug directly into, and some of them even have the harness for your passenger too. But many of the older models, like the older Softails, they're actually not going to have that system in them yet. So you will have to install that battery harness to be able to plug directly into. And if you buy the jacket, that harness does come with the jacket. And while there are a limitless amount of combinations, these are some of the kind of things that I've chosen and things that usually work well for me. So if I was going to go for a ride right now, this is pretty much what I would wear. Different gloves, of course, and my helmet. But this is pretty much it. And I'm utilizing that sort of 3-layer system on each area. So for my boots, I've got my Harley-Davidson socks. Again, not trying to turn it into a commercial, but they are solid socks, and these are kind of the cool ones, so they'll do a really good job of wicking, and then a good insulating layer of sock, and then I'll be wearing my boots. And these boots are waterproof, and they do a really good job keeping the wind out too. And then going to the pants, I'm wearing some classic Fruit of the Looms, and then some sweatpants, and then I'm wearing some motorcycle over pants with a quilted liner in them too. And so these pants do a really good job. They're water resistant, but I really like, especially with pants, to go ahead and use an over pant instead of like a motorcycle pant. And these have the armor and stuff in them too. So like I said, I just take these off and then be wearing normal work clothes underneath. Then moving up to the jacket, you already saw those layers. I've got the good moisture wicking layer, a good flannel or something else. I like to keep something a little bit thicker between me and the heated jacket because it seems to help just distribute that heat a little bit better. And then from there, I'm rocking a leather jacket, and that's going to do a really good job of keeping those elements out. Moving up to the neck, some sort of gaiter does really well, or some sort of like neck cover. Sometimes I'll double up with 2. That way I can keep one nice up and close to the helmet, and then bring another one up over my face. And that way I can wear it and still breathe through it when I have that chin strap on for the helmet. Then for the helmet, if you're wearing a half helmet, props to you for rocking in the winter. But for really cold conditions, full face helmet is really, really nice. Especially if one has a little chin curtain, so it'll help block out some of that wind too a little bit better. But a full face helmet, it's going to block out a lot of moisture. It's going to help block out a lot of the elements and help you stay a lot warmer. And bonus points for that helmet if it has a good pin lock system. And that pin lock is going to actually help reduce a lot of fogging, which if you're dealing in changing temperatures like this, then fogging is something that you're probably going to encounter, and having that pin lock is really going to help you maintain that visibility. Then for gloves, these are some Harley-Davidson leather gloves that I've rocked ever since I started riding, and they've been absolutely solid. They are more the gauntlet style, so they can kind of slide just over the jacket or under the jacket pretty well, and they've been great. But a lot of things people overlook with gloves, if you can get your core warmer, then it's going to help get warmer blood into your hands to help them stay a little bit better. So that's really going to help your hands. Then of course having hand guards or fairings or something like that on your bike, that's going to help a ton. But these gloves, they've done great. The only downside to these is that they aren't fully waterproof. So quick little mist, they'll do all right, but for a solid downpour, probably gonna want something else. Now Harley does have the gauntlet style waterproof ones, and if I was gonna go buy, if these weren't holding up so well and I had to go buy some new ones, then I'd probably go check those out. And then as a pro move, if you are doing any sort of longer riding and touring, what I'd highly recommend doing is bringing your rain gear. Now, even if it's not gonna rain, the rain gear does a really good job of also keeping rain out, but it's a really good extra layer to keep the wind out. If you're out riding and it gets a little bit colder, a lot colder than you think, and there's still some wind getting through your system, then throw your rain gear on at the next gas stop, and that's going to do a really good job of helping keep even more wind out. Now, this is all stuff that I've done. There's some the other hacks, like bringing your hand down to catch the heat coming off the motor and some other things like that. And some folks even throw like medical gloves or rubber gloves up underneath their motorcycle gloves. There's a lot of neat little tricks and stuff like that that some folks have done, but this is just kind of what's worked for me. So if you have any cool ideas that's worked for you, be sure to drop those there in the comments below, and let's keep on riding through the winter. So I hope some of these tips helped, and I hope that now you'll be able to stay a little bit warmer and a little bit more prepared for some of your winter rides, and hopefully you can stay out riding and be riding before the spring even gets here. So thanks for watching, and in the meantime, ride safe and warm, and we hope to see you out here at Tobacco Road Harley-Davidson sometime soon.